also happens to be the principal owner of our very own Atlanta Hawks, Mr. Tony Ressler. And to moderate this great session, we have CNBC correspondent Contessa Brewer. Let's give them all a round of applause.
Whoa. Whoa. What? Hold on a minute. I think you guys have gotten spoiled. You see kings and queens and leaders and civil rights icon. You see Ambassador Andrew Young in the halls. Yo, Andy, you got him real comfortable. Last year we had all of the sports commissioners, first time in history, on our stage. Never happened. This year we bring a CNBC star flanked by 3 sports team owners, all billionaire ballers, loving their community, and all you gotta say is this: can we do it one more time?
Do you know what kind of TV I could do if right before the show they would get everybody in the building out there and say, "Give it to Contessa Brewer," and then the crowd would go wild and I would just go nail it every time. But you guys get that because the teams come out, the crowd goes wild, and sometimes you lose.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the crowd doesn't always cheer for us.
The crowd doesn't cheer for you?
Not always.
Winning helps. Winning helps.
Okay, because we're in a culture that celebrates winning, and yeah, we all teach our kids, oh, there's no failure, there's only the lessons you learn. But tell us what it's like to lose. I mean, John.
That's hard.
What it's like to lose? It's no fun. Losing's no fun.
How do you cope with it when it happens?
Well, it's going to happen, right? Especially in baseball. I mean, baseball is an interesting sport. We play 162 games, and the very best teams lose 60 games, and the worst teams win 60 games. So, on those, if you're one of the best teams, on those 60 days you lose, you better find a way to smile. The other thing about baseball, it's interesting, which I like about it. You play every day, so if you lose, you get to redeem yourself the next day, and if you win, you can't wait to get back and do it again.
What's it like for you to go in? I mean, you have a team that goes to the Super Bowl. The expectations are high. You have fans all over. I went to a Jets game a few weeks ago against the Giants. I swear the whole stadium were Giants fans. They won. So it was a good day for you. It was sad for us. What's it like when the expectations from your fan base are so high?
I mean, I love the expectations, and I mean, our standard is to keep for and win Super Bowls every year. Like that's what we're here for. And when you lose, it just sucks. And I don't know how else to say. Like 162 games just sounds brutal to me. 17 is a lot, and when you lose, right? For us, losing one game is a 10-game losing streak to you. Right? It's a very, very big deal to win or lose a game. And I think that's what makes the NFL so special is every game matters so much. But you have to be able to, by the next day, you have to be able to get it out of your system. Whether you are super ecstatic because you won or you're devastated because you lost, you have to find a way to get yourself back on Monday morning and get ready to go again.
Tony, are there lessons about losing that you also apply in your day job?
Well, it's, I think as everyone's trying to describe, you just got to roll with the punches of it. In the last 2 nights, we won a double overtime game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Thank you. And then unfortunately last night we lost by 1 in a back-to-back against the Detroit Pistons. So it's hard winning and losing. But I will say, kind of like Wall Street in a lot of ways, what I love about the sports business is that you can't hide underperformance. Winning is what defines you. And either you win more games than you lose in whatever sport, and you build a brand and you have loyal fans and you build and build and build and win and win and win, or you don't. And the fan base knows the effort most teams are trying to put in. But winning is hard, but you have to prepare for the alternative. And that's true in every business.
I agree with Tony there. The accountability in sports is incredible. You got to show up every day. You're playing the best teams in the world at what they do. And if you don't bring it, and that's different from business. Business, it can be sometimes nuanced,
You bet.
right? The results are clear in sports, which is something I really like about it.
No question.
But if Aries has the second best returns in alternative assets, you're probably pretty happy for the season.
No doubt.
Like second place in sports isn't awesome, right? It's a very, very different thing because there's only one person that's happy at the end of the day, and that's whoever wins the championship.
And that does what makes, I don't know if this is too loud, maybe.
You're just like me. You know how to project into your microphone.
I better whisper. But unlike Wall Street, in the NBA or the NFL or the MLB, there's one winner at the end of every year. And if you're performing, no matter how big a business you might be, you're trying to make 10% or 12% returns for your investors. It's not about being the one person at the end of the season that wins or loses a championship. So it is a different mindset. But I will say the one thing that has changed in the sports world, really for all the MLB teams and certainly for all the NFL teams and for NBA teams, is as values have grown in this asset class, people expect more. People expect higher quality businesses to be run. So they expect you to invest in the team in many, many different ways that you haven't beforehand.
Okay, so that's interesting because when you say invest in the teams, you also mean invest in the communities in which the teams play. Were any of you surprised when you took this leadership role in your team at the responsibilities and the expectations for civic and community commitment?
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised by the community commitment. I've been in Kansas City a long time. Our founder was Ewing Kauffman, and that was kind of the standard, right? You give back to the community. As it relates to how at the end of the day, what we just talked about, our core business is to win baseball games. But it's important to use these brands and these platforms to do good and important work in the community. And we do a lot in Kansas City. We're revitalizing neighborhoods. We have a literacy program right now, and maybe this is more than you want to know, but the literacy rates in third grade in the Kansas City public schools are 23%. That's kind of a crisis, right? It's such an important juncture. And we're inspiring kids and teachers and families to read. We're sending our very best players into the classroom. In addition to that, we're not just doing that. We're providing instructional resources and high dosage tutoring and those things that can really move the needle at a very important point.
I don't mean this in a way to undermine the good work that's being done, but I work for CNBC. We always want to highlight the return on the investment.
Right.
So how do you get a return on investment if you're improving literacy rates in third grade?
Well, I think that's a very strategic objective. But I think it's good business. I think that our fans, our community, we're also public partners. We do things. We do public-private partnerships, and we have investors, municipalities. When we're investing back, we become better partners with those people over time. But also, I think our fans. We surveyed our fans recently, and at the end of the day, the main thing is to win. But a good amount of our fans considered it very important that we do this work. And so I just think it brings our fans closer to the organization.
You need that public-private partnership, right? No matter what, whether you privately finance your stadium or you have 100% public financing, there's still a public-private partnership. And these teams, they are public trusts, right? Somebody else is going to own our teams at some point in our lifetime or at some point in the future, right? There's more to it than just owning the team. You have to make your community a better place. I was born into the 49ers. I was born in 1981. My grandfather bought the team in 1977. So this is something that I've just grown up with and I've been around. but you have to make your community a better place. And when I look at Levi's Stadium, we're in our 11th season at Levi's. We've done about $2 billion in economic impact. And between the Super Bowl and World Cup that we're hosting this year, February Super Bowl, June, July World Cup, we'll do another $1 billion in economic impact just with those two events. And that's huge, right? People ask me, like, how much money do you make from hosting the Super Bowl? Hosting a Super Bowl is not a business that I would tell anybody to go into, because you do not make any money when you host a Super Bowl. But it is an investment back into your community that puts literally all of the country's eyes and a lot of the eyes around the world on your community. And it's something that it's an investment in building something for the future of your community, investing in whether it's classrooms. We're the only stadium that has a classroom in it.
Yeah.
We host 70,000 kids at a program every year. It started from my wife, who was teaching, and she couldn't get into, it wasn't that she couldn't get into a museum, she couldn't get there physically, right? San Francisco Public Schools, they didn't have enough money for busing. They didn't have enough people, where her school is a very, very working class community. There was no parents that can go on a field trip. So we made sure that it was 100% free to bring all of the kids from around the Bay Area. And we actually have kids even from down south in San Diego come up to see what we're doing. And that's something that you're able to give back in a way that makes the difference. And if you create a third grader that reads, where that person becomes a Royals fan or not, it makes your community a better place. Right. And that's what you have to do. That's right.
You mentioned that your grandpa bought the team in 1977. I think he bought it for $13 million.
Something right.
CNBC now says the valuation, my colleagues did this work, $8.6 billion.
Yeah,
That's quite a lot of growth.
I mean, we had the conversation backstage and looking at this as an asset class. I don't look at sports as an asset class. I look at it as my business and something that matters very personally to me. It happens to be a business, but I would tell anybody that invests in a sports team, and as this asset class grows and you have an opportunity to invest, whether it's through a fund or something that I think will be there relatively soon for people to invest in these.
So would you ever consider fractional ownership or tokenization of the teams?
So we're only allowed to have 25 investors. So until those rules change, and I'm not a lawyer, so I can't tell you, I just know that that's the number that the NFL sets. I think that will change over time. Private equity is now allowed to invest, and to the extent that you can invest in things, what I've told people when they're looking at these, it makes no sense the day you write the check.
Yeah.
But in 10, 15, 20 years, it's amazing what happens to these assets. And it's something that is really a lifestyle that people love. And I mean, I don't know that you aspired to own the Kansas City Royals, but when you do, there's nothing like owning a team.
I aspire to be a player. How could
Exactly. We all aspire to be players.
Once that became evident, the next best thing is to own the team.
But I will say, just as a contrast to Jed, a remarkable asset that Jed and his family run, of course, but I very much look at sports as an asset class. And I think it's an asset class that literally no one is quite sure, because if you include ancillary businesses, if you include the real estate development around stadiums and arenas, this asset class globally, we're talking what could be a $2 or $3 trillion asset class that has enormous opportunities, both for employment and for investment. And I would argue, literally, when you invest, and in my day job at Ares Management, a business I am the chairman of, we have probably $20 billion invested in various sports activities and businesses around the world. So to give you a sense, some of those businesses, like NFL franchises, for example, are remarkably safe and very, very expensive, both to get in, to own, to grow, where the new rugby league or a new bull riding league or a new women's volleyball league are almost venture capital-like in their approach.
There's slap fighting and car jujitsu and mini golf leagues.
There are. But all that tells you is that in this world of sports, which I do believe is a massive asset class and an investable asset class and a workable asset class, there are really dangerous, scary, venture-like investments and remarkably safe, attractive, long-term.
I love PE guys that are like so scared of venture capital. I think it's just hysterical.
Well, okay, so on that point, because private equity is now taking bigger and bigger stakes in sports, in the corporate world, a lot of times what happens is private equity will get in and they will pressure management to find places to cut, look for efficiencies. They want to see a greater return on that investment.
Private equity would never do that.
Never, never. And by the way, in the great conflict or potential conflict of private equity investors, if you think about it, they invest in a franchise, and using the Atlanta Hawks, we turned the State Farm Arena into the largest voting location in the 2020 election in this country. That was, again, but we're also participating in a $5 billion development across the street to help downtown Atlanta, which we think is going to transform the city. But there are many things that, my point being, that may not specifically increase the value of the Atlanta Hawks, but will help this community. And the question is, does private equity investors have that foresight, that understanding, that increasing your role in the community is actually good business? And that's what hopefully your private equity partners are able to do.
And I think, to me, the 49ers are a great asset, and there's so many things that you can do, whether you're a great business person or not. When you own a sports team, you get invited to anything that you can want to be a part of. And to me, I look at our partners with the 49ers and say, look, this is what the 49ers are about. But if we can take this brand and we can do other things in and around the brand that help you enhance your return, I think that's where you see the asset class building and growing.
But do you think we're in a bubble? I mean, when you're looking at these media right deals for, you've got this MLB short-term deal that's due to expire. NBA made a deal for $76 billion. NFL, $110 billion. And then the valuations going up. Gambling, which I want to get to, is fueling some of this. Are we in a bubble?
Well, I mean, we just had preliminary numbers from the Thursday Thanksgiving games. Lions Packers did like 45 million viewers, which is NFC Championship game type numbers. Cowboys Chiefs did close to 60 million viewers. Like, people are watching sports more and more. People are watching baseball, people are watching basketball. And I think as you see, whether it's AI or just technology in general, making your life, certainly your work-life balance, better and easier, people are looking for more sustainable entertainment options, and sports is the mainstay there.
Morgan Stanley says that sports has been very slow in technological adoption and innovation compared to other industries, and suggests that if sports were to close that lag, that there could be a 25% jump in growth in sales globally because of technology. I'm just curious, how are you viewing, you can't do a panel these days and not bring up AI. Sorry, you have to. Okay, so when we're talking about AI, how are you currently using it, and in what ways do you think it could transform the game?
I mean, we use it for ticketing, right? I mean, we have the highest ticket revenue in the National Football League. It's not if you use it, it's how you use it.
Data analytics.
You have to use it for data analytics. Now, there's a lot of things that leagues, and I don't know the specific rules in their leagues, but you can't use, for the NFL specifically, we can't use a calculator in the coach's booth during a game. All right, so like I'm not sure that an AI technology tool is going to be permitted in the near future during an NFL game, and I don't know how that works for baseball and basketball. But we need to figure out how to use these things more to make our games more efficient. Certainly with injury, and making sure that we can
Right.
take our players' health and safety and make it the best that it can possibly be.
You also have to be super careful about technology affecting the game. The MLB lovers, baseball lovers, football lovers, basketball lovers, people love the tradition and they want an improved product, but they don't want a dramatic change in what they love. So you have to be careful how you actually introduce technology to your business and to your team.
Could it transform scouting for new talent?
You know, I think we use, I guess you would call it AI for predictive models when we evaluate players, and we're going to do more of that. That will make us more efficient, because all the data is there on the skills of a player. Everything's measured biometrically on. But at the end of the day, you still need scouts, because we can understand, can they run, can they hit, all those metrics. But the scout's the person that's going to. You need a scout to find out about the heart of the player, the character of the player, right? Because it's not all just science. These are athletes, and making plays and how they conduct themselves under pressure is a big part of. So we're using AI quite a bit. I would call it we have a proprietary system in our analytics and R&D that uses it's a predictive model, but it's not a standalone thing.
And what about coaching? Can you see a day where the AI is a better coach than your guy on the field?
I mean, I think Kyle's the best coach in the National Football League, and I personally,
who is
Kyle Shanahan. I don't think people want to see AI trying to be as perfect as it can possibly be. Part of what makes sports great is that you see somebody rise to the occasion. You see failure. That's what makes it so fantastic. Right. Having something that's perfectly scripted and perfectly, lined up by AI, I don't think that's appealing viewership.
Speaking of imperfect, we've seen some high-profile pitchers throw a ball and then come out and federal prosecutors say, yeah, that was intentional, and they were making money on that, and they were rigging baseball pitches. So we've seen it with the NBA and some high-profile arrests. Gambling has introduced new level of scandals, new level of scrutiny, and then on top of that, you have the sudden and dramatic rise of prediction markets, which are not going through the process of getting gambling licenses state by state. They're just open for business. How is gambling and prediction markets changing the game? Where do you foresee that going?
So I'm sure all of us have an awkwardness in how we speak about it. On the one hand, let's not be confused. Sports betting and young people increase viewership of virtually all sporting events. So sports betting enhances the experience from most fans' perspective. Now, I would argue, like social media, like AI, sports betting needs to be regulated more effectively than it has been. And we have to figure out, every league, certainly the NBA, has to figure out how to both have sports betting, but actually focus on the areas that are most susceptible to abuse. Prop bets, for example, if a kid could determine whether they play 20 minutes or less, and that type of prop bet is available, again, that just might be too exposed. So leagues have to adjust and have to figure out how to reduce the risk of young players taking advantage and not even fully appreciating that they're breaking the law. And this is something that, again, it's so new. Not that sports betting is new,
No, that's
but
been around for a long time.
legalized sports betting with the prop bets that are available. I don't think any of the leagues want to take sports betting off the table, because I think I don't think we're 100% certain, but I think the positives outweigh the negatives. But there are negatives, and we have to learn to deal with them. And my answer would be increased regulation.
And then we're also hearing from athletes that they're under a lot of pressure on social media, in their neighborhoods. They go to church and they get harassed because some dude lost money on a bet that the athlete was involved in. It's especially tough for college players and the pressure that they're under. You guys were having an amazing conversation about college sports backstage, about the ways that name, image, and likeness deals have changed who's coming into the game and what you're dealing with. Can you share a little bit with the audience, just your high-level thoughts about what's what's up for college sports?
Well, I mean, in 4 minutes and 34 seconds, I don't know that we'll get to the heart of it. But number one, I believe that college athletes for certain deserve to be paid, right? You look at the amount of revenue that they generate. It just needs to be similar to sports betting and prop bets. It needs to be regulated better, right? You have to have rules on both sides. For sure. When you're going to commit to a player, right? When any of us commit to a player, we're paying them, right? Like they're on our roster, whether they get hurt, whether they don't get hurt, and they can't leave to go to another team in the middle of the season, at the end of the season, if they're still under contract. So you have to have something that makes the game still what it should be, the essence of it. But you have to take care of these guys, and the vast majority, if not all players, NIL is not. You're not an employee of a college. You're an independent contractor. And one of the problems that I see that's going to come up, these kids are supposed to do their own tax withholdings. They're trying to figure out how to deal with having a significant amount of money, which again, they deserve the money, but giving an 18-year-old $1 million is not a great idea in the long run for people. I think we have to make sure that we're protecting kids from themselves, and you have to make sure that you're protecting them from tax evasion, which they're not trying to do. They don't necessarily know and understand the rules. We do a thing every year with our rookies. So we make sure that we have their families, their loved ones come in, and we talk about how that they set up their 401k plan, all of these types of things. 20 rookies this year, their families. I asked, how many people received NIL in college? 100% of the hands go up. How many schools did any type of financial literacy, any type of training? 0 hands go up. John, like super huge market for Operation Hope and financial literacy for college sports, because these kids need help. And colleges, this has happened and changed so quickly overnight. We're not doing anything to take care of these kids, and you're setting them up for failure by giving them too much money and no financial literacy and no training whatsoever.
I agree with
That was a call to action. Quite clearly, you've been focused on this financial literacy issue.
Yeah, the only comment I would make, and I've certainly made it to John a number of times, financial literacy for young athletes, of course, is important. Financial literacy for everyone under the age of, well, at any age, but certainly it should be required under the age of 18, so that 90% of our young people can take out a loan, can learn a small business loan, a car loan, a home loan. 90% of our young people don't know how to do that, and 90% of our young people should know how to do that. So financial literacy should be a core competency by the time you're 18 with certainty across this country.
I see it with athletes,
including young athletes.
But I mean, we see with our athletes, and our athletes, professional athletes get paid very, very well, right? You should make enough money to live very comfortably for the rest of your life. And a lot of our players do not take care of their money well. It leads to mental health problems.
Right.
And again, if we're not doing things to teach these kids financial literacy in grade school and high school, it's very hard for them to learn it and absorb it as they grow and get older. And John has been helpful with the 49ers. We're trying to make sure that the money that we pay our players, they can live great, successful lives after the game, because most of them are done by the time they're 30, and they have a very, very long life in front of them.
And to your point, Contessa, these young athletes, they're under a lot of pressure. You talked about gambling creating more pressure. They're already under a lot of pressure. They make a lot of money, but the expectations, and it is, I think it's incumbent upon us. Jed's point about colleges, it's hard to do, right? Because there's no real regulation, but it's incumbent upon our leagues, our professional leagues, and really at the team level to make sure we're doing things to help our athletes, not only financially, but dealing with the psychological pressures that they're under at a very young age.
I almost never do this, but I'm going to run over 1 minute on time because I just want to get a big picture thought about where sports is heading and the thing that keeps you up at night when you think about pitfalls for the next 5 years. What do you think, Tony?
Well, I think you mentioned, I do think the integrity of the game and how to regulate sports betting is a big issue for the NBA and for every professional sports league. And of course, global media rights continue to be sort of the issue. And how do we cultivate 700 million Chinese NBA fans, which is critically important to the future value of the NBA without if you will, diminishing the importance in Europe. You know, we're about to launch an NBA Europe. So global media and global fans, as well as the integrity of the game, would be my two big issues right now.
I mean, to me, when we're talking about sports as an asset class and it's building and growing, I just hope that we don't forget what makes sports special, and that's the fans that come into the game. And the more that we're worried about what is the bottom line, what is the return, I think you are doing something that can be very disruptive and harmful to a community and a society. We talked about this a little bit backstage. Our arenas, our stadiums, like that's the last bastion of your public square where you meet other people you don't know, you have a shared experience. I think that's something that makes our country and our world special, is what happens at sporting events, and we can't lose that.
Contessa,
So will the NFL lower ticket prices?
Look, I mean, we have low ticket prices. We have standing room only seats. We do everything that we can to get people into other stadiums. And again, Bay Area is going to be a more difficult market to buy tickets in and more expensive than somewhere else. There's other things that we have with a publicly owned building. But when I look at Leeds United, right, Leeds has supporters that travel to every away match, and they're paying, you know, 15 to 30 pounds a ticket to go to those matches. And those are the fans that make the experience awesome for everybody else. We need to figure out how to do that. And that's something that I think is very, very important, that you have a segment of society that isn't paying a ton of money to come to a game, because that's what generates the energy and the electricity in the stadium. We can't lose that.
For sure.
You know, Contessa, to answer your question, what keeps me up at night is not so much threats. It's more about kind of maximizing the opportunity. This business is so, it's so abundant, right? We were talking about this backstage. You know, in a world where so many things divide us, actually sports unites us. It's really the great unifier. And I think making sure that it stays that way. I think we learned in COVID that how important live sports were. We talked about the media values that have risen. You know, people were watching cornhole championships in the middle of the night back in COVID, right? We needed to get baseball back on the field. But to me, it's what worries, and it is taking advantage of all these opportunities that we have, whether it's the international business, or, as you said, blocking and tackling, you know, with our fan base.
Well, I hope you thought this was a home run, a touchdown, a slam dunk of a panel.
Slam dunk.
Thank you all for great attention. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you, John.
The NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL on the stage, owners at the same time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. John. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, thank you, Jed, John, Tony, and Contessa, for a great session. So far, so good? All right. Well, it's time for us to kind of split up for a moment to